Well, the bass chose me. I didn't choose the bass. Basically, I didn't know it. The infatuation basically started when I was in high school because there was a group. We had a accordion, trumpet, saxophone, drums, and bass. And I was a trumpet player. And every time we would rehearse, we would take a break. Everybody go outside or go get some popcorn or whatever, and I gravitate over to the bass and just touch it, you know, and then, but that's when I really think that's when I was kind of mystified by it. And ironically, the bass that I own now, this guy owned at the time, you know, my high school.
Oh,
buddy.
really?
Yeah, and that's the one on the Dexter Gordon records and everything. And but I began to teach myself. I had a lot of time in the military to mess up, and I think a lot of people do, you know. But the Air Force Band, we did formations, and we had worked in the morning from 8 to 12, and we were done. And
now, when you say worked, does that mean we played music, practiced, or rehearsed, or something? Right.
Because we were. In Montgomery, it was called the Strategic Air Command Base. So we had a lot of things that we had to do. And at that time, I was the only black person in the band. I was there when Kennedy got assassinated. I was there in the bombings of Birmingham. I was there. It was a very interesting time. Fortunately, nothing funny happened to me. I didn't see any ugliness, but it was all around me.
Okay, right.
And but it was so fruitful. That's when I saw Ike and Tina Turner's band. That's when I saw James Brown's band. He was beating up 2 drummers then. I saw Bobby Blue Bland's band.
The Children's Circuit stuff?
Oh, man. But I mean, Ike and Tina Turner's band, I saw them up close and it blew me away. In fact, I remember taking a girl because she wanted to go to this show. And I said, I don't want to go to a rock and roll show. But she was so fine, I had to go with her. So,
That'll do it, right.
So we go, and the band comes out. It was the first Motown review from Detroit. And the band came out and played a whole hour before the actual show started. And I'm not real sure, but I think
James Jamerson
could have been playing, and also Marcus Belgrave may have been the conductor. He was a young guys, but they had the Marvelettes, the Contours, they had all the heavy Mary Wells and all that. But the band came out and played jazz, and I said, wow, I sat up straight, and then it made me, wait a minute, I was talking about being so stiff about the different kinds of music, and these guys were playing the music.
Right.
They played their music, and then they played the other music because it was all good. And I tell you, I enjoyed the whole time. I think it cost $3.
Okay, right.
But I'll never forget that. And then but I tell a lot of the students now because I worked with an organ player in a club, and every Wednesday we had to go to the jukebox. The new songs came out on Wednesday, and so for us to play on Friday and Saturday. So we had to learn it. There were no real books. There were no wrong books. There were no books of any kind. So we had to actually sit down and listen and copy. And that was my serious education. And then we played it. And then I remember going to Birmingham, Alabama, and going to this club, and people were dancing. I mean, it was jumping, and the bass line was I said, man, that's that bass line. What is that? And I go and I look, Horace Silver. Who's that?
Oh, really?
You know, it was I said, and then that was my beginning of understanding who he was and what he began to write. And I said, wow. And that was kind of, it happened. Then I got shipped to Japan. And then I started taking lessons. I studied with a retired Japanese bass player from the Tokyo Symphony. He could speak no English, I could speak no Japanese.
But you spoke music.
But he said, do them. I said, okay. And then he said, no.
I know you've worked with a number of people throughout the years. Has there been any of those people where they were the leader of the group that you found that it was a learning experience for you?
Eddie Harris.
Eddie Harris, really?
Eddie Harris was still, for me, the most influential person I ever did work with.
Really?
And people really don't understand because a lot of people don't know how heavy he was, you know. They only know about all the pop stuff that he became famous. But that was my first job, first professional job. And I had recordings of him when I was in the military. I'll never forget that it was called the End Sound. And it had Freedom Jazz Dance on it, and it had Ron Carter and Cedar and Billy Higgins and this trumpet player Ray Cardigan, I think. And I wore that record out.
Really?
And so when I got to Chicago, everybody said, you know, Eddie Harris lives in Chicago. I said, really? So I sought him out and I said, man, I really love your music. I'd like to play with you. And he says, well, good. You know, he was a funny guy. He says, you're in school right now, aren't you? I said, yeah, I'm going to Northwestern. He says, you just go ahead and finish that. And get that
that's
together.
great. That's great.
And all this stuff will be out here. And if you still want to play with me after you get out, you know, we'll talk about it.
That's great.
So, I mean, as you know, there are a lot of guys, they say, oh, I like the way you play. I need you on the road.
Right now.
And they'll just drop everything.
Right.
And, I mean, literally drop everything. And then they'll drop them on the halfway around the world. And then now they've dropped two things and they're done.
Right.
Or trying to recoup is really, but, so I'm thankful for him for that. And then he says, well, you know how come you're in my band? I said, why? He said, because you said you liked my music. Now, he's recording on Atlantic Records and everything. He said, a lot of people just want to play with me because I'm famous. Or I'm playing with somebody. And maybe that'll rub off. And he said, I don't want that. I want somebody who, if you really like the music, you'll put more into it. Then, he says, okay, there's only two things I need you to do. Be on time and be able to play. And on Friday, I will pay you this amount of money. And on Friday, I didn't have to go hunt for him.
He was there? Okay.
And I mean, it sounds easy. It sounds so simple. But for a whole lot of folk, that doesn't work. You know, it just doesn't work. But see, he was around, and then he taught us be on the road. He says, this is your family away from the road, from home. So you have to look out for each other. You got your suitcase is red, mine is blue, yours is purple, you know. So when we're traveling, you make sure that everybody's stuff is, you look out for each other. Et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, it was like, wow. And it was that special. And we played, I know you're familiar with his recordings, but you know, the A side was the pop one. The B side was the experimental stuff. So, but that's what we did every night. We played, he says, let's play bebop. And he said, I don't want to hear no funk. I don't want to hear, it's bebop. I mean, real bebop. And then when we play a ballad, it's luscious. It's just beautiful. And when we play funk, I don't want to hear any bebop.
Okay, right.
You know, and if we're going to play outside, he said, he took off. He said, I don't even want to hear a triad. He said, I don't want to hear any of that. He said, so we would do that in the course of an evening. For almost 5 years I did that. So he basically taught me not to be afraid of music, any kind of music. Don't judge anything just because. And and I think the censure was now. I did this workshop, one of the very first ones, and I had 25 little young bass players, and I said, well, you guys really need Ray Brown's book, but I was having problems reading Ray Brown's book myself, so I started writing out little things for them, and then when I came back, we're riding in the van with Eddie, and I said, man, Ray Brown doesn't even know. I just sold 25 of his books for him, you know. He said, well, why don't you write your own book? I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, they write. He said, who are they?
Okay.
And I said, He said, you're intelligent, right? I said, yeah. He says, you're a college graduate, right? I said, yes. He said, you're out here playing with me, right? I said, yes. And he says, we're on Atlantic Records, right? He said, write your own book.
Is that the evolving basis?
The evolving basis. He said, but you must do two things.
What's that?
He says, you have to finish it, because most people don't finish anything. And then he says, you have to own it.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know how profound that statement was. We're talking now early 70s. The book is still on the market to this day, and I still own it. And so that alone, business-wise, he knew how to survive as a professional musician. Not only one who plays, one who takes care of business, all the business. And we just got a check, a small one. It's always been small, but for 45 years later, I get a royalty check from the Eddie Harris's estate, because we were playing. He says, make up a bass line, man, you know, and then put a drum beat to that. And then had Ronald Muldrow play the guitar on it, and I'll put a melody over the top of it. Okay, I mean, he just told us to do it, we did it. But what he did, he put all our names and copyrighted.
Really? That's great. That's great.
Now, see, I didn't even know how
great it was,
that great it was.
Right.
But 45 years later, I'm still getting a little check of 1/6 of something.
Right.
Because he copyrighted everything, and it was in his own publishing company. He paid us with a business check, not an Eddie Harris check. And I said, wow.
You're here in Cambridge at Harvard.
I am.
What are you doing here at Harvard?
It is an amazing experience to be invited to be the jazz master in residence here. I guess I can actually say, I guess I am old enough. I've done a few things that appears to be significant. And so, and I'm, like I said before, I'm reaping the benefits of them now. And I've always taught. I've always been willing to share. And if the students want to learn, whether they be here or anywhere else, I'm willing to work with them. Mm-hmm. People never said, oh, get out, go away. People would say, hey man, good job, keep it up. And that's all we need, particularly coming from the right person.
Right, okay, right.
It's very empowering, you know. And I have to say this, and it's kind of like I just got an email from Benny Golson. And he said, well, why don't you send me some of the music you've been writing? And so I sent him something a couple months ago. And he's busy and he's in and out. And I get an email from him, and it was just glowing. Because the first time he heard some of my big band stuff, he says, you know, I always liked the way you play, but there's another side of you I didn't even know existed. Yeah. So this has been very, very empowering, you know, from someone. I mean, Benny Golson is heavy.
Powerful, right, man. Yes.
He's an incredible gentleman. I mean, a fantastic human being, and not only a player, but he's one of the heavy composers of our music. You know, so to get that pat on the back from someone like he is very wonderful and gratifying.